when you get 200 officials on a board like this, or 250 officials on a board like this, and everybody has that ego, that confidence, everybody wants to succeed. And so, not everybody can succeed at the same time. Not everybody's going to succeed to the same degree. So what separates people? What enables some officials to climb the ladder? What enables some people to get to the top of that, whatever it is you want to get to? That's what I just want to address tonight for a few minutes. What are some of those factors that can maybe make that 10% difference, that 20% difference in where you get to as an official? Because that's what we want to do, right? Is we want to progress. We want to do better at this. And so we agree that it's a competitive environment that we're working in. So what can help make a difference? One of the things is to know exactly what you want. Okay? And that's different for each person here. Maybe you just want to get some exercise, you want to get out and have some fun, you love the game, you want to be involved in the game, and there's nothing wrong with that. That's one of the best motives there are for refereeing. Just have fun, get some exercise, interact, be around the game. So know what you want, because maybe what you want, maybe you want to referee in the NBA. Maybe you're a younger person and you think, I'd like to work on television every night with those professional athletes. It's a valid goal. But the gap, right, between that and just wanting to work some club ball or work some kids ball, get some exercise, it's about figuring out what it is you want to do as an official. So be honest with yourself. Do some real serious soul searching and figure out what it is you want to do. Because the answers, in terms of how you get there, are very different, right? So when you figure out what you want to do, tell schedule, and you want to work CIS, or you want to work professional ball. How do you get to that point? Well, once you figure that out, tell the people that can affect your progress. So who are those people? Who are those people that you can tell, hey, listen, I want to reach the next level. I'd like to reach the college level, the college panel. That's where I want to get to next. Talk to the college evaluator. Talk to the resource officer. Talk to the president of the board. Talk to the assigners. Let them know that's what your goal is. So that's a huge key. Don't waste time. Start right away. Once you figure out what your next goal is, what you want to reach, start working at that goal immediately. A piece of advice I was given years and years ago when I started out in work, I was taking a break from university and I was working at a financial services company. And somebody I knew told me the best advice they had was dress for the job you want in that company. So if you're working in the mailroom and everybody's wearing jeans and a t-shirt, but you want to work on the executive level, wear a suit and tie to work every day. It's the same thing with officiating. If you want to reach professional level or CIS level, start acting, start conducting yourself in that manner, like you see those officials doing it. Start doing it right away. Whether you're working a high school game, a kid's game on a Saturday morning, whatever it is. There was an official years ago, a lot of the old timers will remember, a young guy named Shannon Bone. Shannon Bone was about my age, and first time I refereed with him, he walked in with one of those wheeled suitcases, with his referee stuff in it. He had the polished, the patent leather black shoes, which were popular at the time. He looked like he was going to an NBA game. And we were doing a club game on a Saturday morning. And I remember thinking, that's a little odd. But he knew exactly what he wanted to accomplish. He knew where he wanted to get to. And so he patterned himself right from the beginning on what he wanted to get to. He dressed for the job he wanted to get to. And you know what he did? He became a big-time college official in the States and did very well for himself. He was no better or worse than a lot of other people that were refereeing at the time, but he knew what he wanted, and he started working towards it right away. One of the key things you've got to do to make the next step in your career is figure out what's missing in your game. So there is something that's not allowing you right now to work at that next level. You got to figure out what that is. Figure out what the missing piece is. Now, how do you do that? Well, there's a few different ways we're going to talk about how we can fill those gaps. First of all, to start to figure out what you're not able to do, what you're not doing right now, watch the games very carefully that you aspire to get to. So, if you want to referee, that's the thing. I mean, living in a city like Toronto, those games are easily accessible, right? You can go out to any of the universities, any of the colleges, and check the schedule online, go and watch those games. It's very simple. I did it as a young official all the time. And you start to see, okay, I see what those guys are doing, what those girls are doing at that level. What am I not doing? So now, you gotta combine a couple of things. You watch those games, watch them on computer if you want, or better to watch them in person. And then record yourself refereeing, or watch tape of your officiating. Get your friend, get your loved one to come out to a game, tape you doing a game. Look at the difference. What am I not doing? What's different about my game versus what I'm seeing at that level? Second key is talk to the officials that are working at the level you want to get to. Someone mentioned, one of the presenters a minute ago just mentioned that, I think it was Anne-Marie said, hey, be more generous with your time. But you know what? Be proactive if you're wanting to get to that next level. Go and talk to those guys or those ladies that are working at that level. They will not hesitate to give you the advice you need. They want to help. They want everybody to succeed. So ask them, what is it about, I noticed you made this particular call in this situation. I noticed you handled the coach in this way. I noticed you made this play. What was going through your mind in that situation? Pick their brain. Find out what helped them to get to that level. Get evaluated. Go to camps. Come to meetings like this. I'm not sure how many active members on the board there are, Pete, right now? How many?
230.
230. So we got about 60 people here, 70 people here? So it's about 30% of the board is here today. That's 70% of the board is missing an opportunity to hear from those ones that spoke earlier about what they did, what their experience was like, to hear presentations about how you can get better. So you're already doing something that's putting you ahead of others. Get educated on the game. There's so much to learn. Like, I'm not sure, I think I'm uniquely, maybe not uniquely, I think I'm well positioned to give this kind of advice. And I'll tell you why. Basketball has been a big part of my life for my whole life. I played, I coached, I refereed, I've worked for the Raptors for 28 years. I have seen a million basketball games. I've reffed a million basketball games. I've evaluated a ton of games. I can be that kind of resource for people that want to know how to get better. I was lucky in my career. I don't say this for the purpose of bigging myself up, but I worked a lot of big games. I did, I don't know, it doesn't matter how many I did. I did a lot of big games. How? Was I lucky? Yeah, I was lucky to a degree. Did I know somebody? No, not really. But I worked really hard right from the beginning and tried to get better on a regular basis. I want to just quickly talk about 3 general areas to address in your game. Presentation, play calling, and game management. We're just going to briefly touch on all 3. So presentation, what am I talking about? The mechanics of the game, how you look on the floor, positioning, coverage, all that stuff. Spend your first couple of years of officiating focusing to get that stuff down pat. Don't be thinking about that after 3 or 4 years. It should be just absolutely burned into your brain. This is how I handle that situation. This is what my signals look like. This is what my positioning is like in that situation. Use the early part of your career to make that just absolute muscle memory. Think about the look that you present on the court. It's a sensitive area, of course, how we look on the floor. We're in an athletic endeavor, right? The players are athletic and getting more so. We need to be able to fit into that environment. So, I don't say you absolutely have to do anything, but if you want to present yourself in a way that sometimes breaks the tie between 2 people, You know, if you're at an Article 14 tournament and there's two officials that are calling a pretty similar game, and one of them just, you know, has that really polished look or really athletic look, you know, the chances are that official may get the nod in that situation. So take that out of the equation if you can. You know, I just love to see the fact that in the NBA, you know, there's all ethnicities, there's female officials, male officials working together. We're presenting a beautiful, you know, image of what officials can be, what they can look like. But if you look at the NBA officials or major college officials, they all are in pretty good physical condition too. So that's another part of it that we want to keep in mind. Okay, here's an area that I can't overstate enough. This is something completely within your control. You know, they say in professional sports, there's talent versus effort, right? Some guys are incredibly talented, play with a low motor, don't hang around the league very long. Other guys aren't so talented, but play with incredible effort. They manage to hang around and carve out a beautiful career for themselves. Officiating, it should always be maximum effort. And I know when you're working at Hoop Dome on you know, doing a triple, maybe it's your fourth game of the day, and you know, it seems like the gym is empty. That seems like a time where you can take it off. You know, let's not switch today. Let's, you know, report from the baseline, that kind of stuff. But you never know who's watching, and the habits you develop in those situations will get you through every situation. I'll tell you a quick story. One of the big breaks I got in my career was my third year officiating. I was asked to go and referee at the Etobicoke A-League, which was a really high-end men's league. I don't think it's around anymore, but I was reffing with a guy, an older guy on the board. His name was Bob Little. And Bob had just retired from university officiating. He was in his probably late 50s at the time. Really nice guy. But from my perspective, Bob didn't really have any effect on my career, but I looked at it as an opportunity. I was excited to be there to get this opportunity to work this game. He asked me, you know, how do you want to handle this tonight? He said, how do you want to handle our rotations and stuff? And I said, well, if it's all the same to you, let's go, you know, with full switches, and let's go by the book. And he goes, absolutely, let's do that. And we had a really nice game, tough league. About 3 months later, Bob got the job as the first assigner of the men's university panel. And that experience of working with a young official who was keen and wanted to work hard, wanted to put in the effort, made an impression on Bob. And he called me shortly after he got that job and said he wanted me to start thinking about reaching that level. So I was a young official, I got this big break, but I kind of made the break by having a good attitude about every game I was working. So I can't emphasize enough how important that is. All right, second area, play calling. This is something that, you know, this is something that we can work on, but only repetition is going to make you a great play caller. You've got to work multiple games, multiple years to get really good at it. You can have an instinctive ability, you can know the game, you can play the game, coach the game, but play calling is something that develops over time. You have to put in the time to be really good at it. Watch a lot of basketball. And watch the officials. Watch how the game is called. What they do well, what they don't do well. Get a sense of, you know, block charge. It's a tough call. But if you watch enough of it, you get certain clues, certain keys that can help you make that call. And every level you work is different when it comes to play calling. Understand that. That you have to understand what is being called at that level that I want to get to. Because it's different from that high school game that I worked last week. That college game is different from that in terms of what needs to be called at that level. So, again, educate yourself. Watch those games. Talk to people. Find out what you don't know. If you go into it and say, you know what, I've already got this. I know what I'm doing. I was a good high school official. I'm one of the best high school officials, you know, around. I'm going to just be great at the college level. You know, that'll be a tough experience for you. So be humble. It was mentioned by a couple of the people that presented. Be humble about this. Okay, the last area is the area with the widest range of area for improvement. That's game management. A lot of people, I talk to officials, a lot of people don't even understand really what game management is. But it's absolutely critical to progressing, to reaching the level you want to get to. Somebody mentioned communication. A few people mentioned communication as a critical piece of that, and it is. We talked about that in the last presentation, becoming a good communicator. Strive to understand the game. Like, be a student of the game itself, not just the officiating part of it. Lots of us know the rule book inside and out, but do we understand how the game is played, what's going on the floor? That can be a critical piece of information. I don't want to say I invented the term, but I maybe did invent the term, taking the temperature of the game. I thought years ago that when the game has different cycles within it, right? Sometimes the game, players are just playing, balls going in, referee's job is easy. Other times, coaches are jumping up and down, players are fighting for the ball on the floor, crowd's getting into it, it's loud, it's wild. The temperature of the game has gone up, and we need to referee that situation differently. Understanding that subtle nuance of officiating is critical for game management at that level. So again, it's about learning these things. And you can't learn unless you ask the questions, unless you go to the games, unless you talk to people who are doing it. The game's always evolving. We need to be doing the same thing. Someone said, Clifton said at the end of his presentation, we're all learning, and it's 100% true. My last year officiating, I was striving to get better every single time I went out, trying to learn something from my partners, trying to learn something about what was happening in the game. So it's an ongoing process. Once we feel we know everything, we're probably not going to get what we want to get to. Before I conclude, I just want to talk two quick situations. There was a lot of talk about OFSA, Article 14 tournaments. If we want to be successful at those tournaments, what can we do? I think it was Sadam mentioned that they had a really good pre-game meeting with the RC and the assistants. Listen carefully at those meetings. When you go to one of those tournaments, the RC is telling you how he wants the games officiated, how she wants the games officiated. Listen carefully and try to implement that in your game. I remember I was RC at OFSA a few years ago, and we had a few really good officials there, people who were working at higher levels, university level. They were refereeing at that OFSA, very competitive Quad A boys OFSA. And we told them that there were about 4 or 5 coaches in the tournament that were real challenging coaches to deal with, and what they needed to do to look after those situations. We spent half an hour in that meeting talking about coaches and handling coaches and the bench decorum issue. First couple of games of the tournament, 2 of those coaches were just completely out of control, and 2 of our better officials were on that game and did not handle the coaches. Well, you know what? Those 2 officials probably were expecting to do a semifinal gold medal game. They both went home after the second day. Listen to what the RC is asking. That's a critical element. Try to mirror or mimic what they're looking for in those situations. That can be difficult. We're used to calling a game a certain way. I remember I went to an office in Hamilton one year, and Guy Cipriani was the RC, and I was a young official, and he had some very specific things he wanted called, and I thought, what, I know better than that. Like I was a bit cocky as a young official, and I didn't make it. The only time I ever didn't make the cut at an Article 14 tournament, I didn't listen to the RC. So it was a lesson that I learned. As far as everything else, as far as other levels and just in general, strive to make progress every month. Like every game, try to learn something, but every month, try to assess, where am I at? What am I doing? Am I making progress? Every year, look back and say, hey, was this a positive year? Did I get better this year? Am I moving in the right direction? Take stock of the situation every year. I know it's late, but are there any questions specifically about anything that we've talked about, or anybody have any thoughts about what we talked about? Like, I'm here, I'm available, and there's lots of great officials on this board. Don't hesitate to pick up the phone and call me and say, listen, hey, I'm going to an office next month, or I want to have an opportunity to work at the college level. What do you think about this situation? What do you think about that? Can you look at this tape? Can you come out and watch a game? I'm more than happy to help out, as are other guys and females on this board. Sorry, I use the word guys as sort of both genders. So. Okay, thank you. Any questions? Any thoughts?
Another quick one, Phil. Is there a way where we can get ahead of the game from getting too out of control or the temperature rising before it does? Is there any techniques or?
That's a great question. So I talk about temperature of the game getting hot, and the question is there a way to get ahead of that? Like, you don't want to. Like, my personal philosophy, the way I try to get my crews to work in those situations is when the temperature goes up, we're going to call more for a few minutes. We're going to try to bring everybody under control for a few minutes. Like, it's like an elastic band, right? We always talk about that. We let it out, we pull it out, we let it back in. And when the temperature goes up, call a little bit more. Players will respond, coaches will calm down. Address it with coaches. Don't let coaches get so excited that they're becoming a problem. Deal with it early. Have that good communication. Someone talked about empathy before. That's a great word. Understand where the coaches are coming from. They want to win badly, and we try to understand that as we deal with them. But I would say as the temperature goes up, call more for a couple of minutes. Bring the temperature back down. Yeah.
On the instance you're talking about, getting the heads up that the coaches are a bit difficult.
Yeah.
So to handle that outside of managing the temperature, is it worth talking to the coaches beforehand of like trying to build rapport? Like, how do you navigate that before things heat up?
Yeah, I mean, like, it depends on the level you're talking about, right? If you have a relationship with the coach, if you working at that level regularly, these coaches involved, and you can anticipate there being problems, then yeah, I've had those kind of pre-game conversations with the coaches when we do the handshake before the game. Hey coach, listen, I know things got a little carried away last game. Please talk to me before things get too excited. Before you get too excited, let's have a conversation about it. And if I notice something early in the game, I'm gonna stop and talk to the coaches. Sometimes I'll even bring them together. I remember I was doing a Wilson Cup between Carleton and Ryerson, and Roy Rana and Dave Smart were, they're both very highly wired, very intense people, and they were just completely out of control the first 3 minutes of the game. And I remember I stopped the play, I brought them to center, and I basically said to them, listen, this isn't gonna work tonight. Like, you guys have got to calm down. We're gonna play. We're gonna do our best out here to referee, but you guys are gonna calm down. We're not having it tonight. And it worked for about a minute and a half, and then I had to calm it down again. So it depends on the situation. But yes, be proactive, be empathetic, use communication to diffuse situations. Don't be an idiot. Don't be telling people like to shut up or keep your mouth shut. Things like that do not work. Just treat people with respect at all times. Yeah, I think it's Z?
Yes. It was mentioned earlier that most of the table crews in Toronto are high school students or like thereof, and in situations where the crew table, they are making serious errors, whether they're making timeouts, team fouls, whatever the case, and you've already pregame, you've given your instructionals. What are some of your tactics to approach to come across as genuine and kind as possible? Because you get into those high pressure games, it's a 2-point game with 4 seconds on the clock, and the table crews are lost.
Yeah. So great question about table crews, and I talk about this a lot. For one thing, I've worked on a table crew at the Raptors for 27 years, so I'm always like really empathetic and understand the job that they have to do. It's a tough job. But I'll spend a little bit of extra time before the game. If I don't know, if it's a young kids high school game and I don't know them, I'll spend a few minutes before the game starts just going over things, talking about things, what are the challenges, do you have any questions? So I'm aware that there might be a problem. And then the very first time out, part of the time I'm spending that first time out with my crew on the floor, but then I'll go to the table, make sure everything's okay. How are you feeling? You feeling good about the score? Everything looks good. We're all working well together. They're part of the team, and you can either make them part of your team and be inclusive and communicate a lot with them, or you can have problems. Because honestly, it's not going to work otherwise. You don't know what you're getting in terms of the crew, the table crew. So working with them, spending time with them before the game, absolutely critical. But I'd say in those situations where you have any concerns, be more aware of it early in the game. Don't let it get away from you early in the game, for sure. Good question. Yeah.
So I have a question around, when you look back at games where we've had lopsided city foul counts, usually the second half of the game, difficult coaches that are saying, there are 400 fouls and 500 before we speed up. Can you think of any game or any situation where, we can share some insights on how to deal with those coaches in those scenarios, where the foul count might be lopsided?
Yeah, so you know what, that's a great question, and that's part of game management, right? Managing foul counts is a big part of game management. So how do we manage it? So, a couple things. One is, I talked last time about communication within the crew. When you get to a timeout or end of quarter, and you see that the foul count, you should know what the foul count is anyway, but you check the foul count, you see that there's a disparity. It was 5-1 that quarter, or 7-2 that quarter. Talk about it as a crew. Is there anything that we're seeing that would explain that foul count? Yeah, for sure. This team's way more aggressive. They're pressing, a lot of hands reaching. We've had a lot of aggressive play in the post at this one end. The foul count is completely legitimate. Don't do anything differently. Talk more to the players. Talk to them in the post. If it's a post situation, if it's hand checking, talk to the players at that break. Hey, keep the hands off. Hey, keep the hand out of the back. Less aggressive in the post. Be proactive with the players. But don't change the way you're calling the game. I remember I did a game, Fanshawe was playing Humber, and what was the coach at Fanshawe? Tony, what?
He's still there.
What's his last name?
Carlucci.
Great guy, but he coached his teams to be very aggressive. And I think the foul count in the first, remember this is at Humber. I'm a Toronto official, guys from London, like we knew each other, but the foul count I think was like 18-4 in the first half against London. Like London had 18 fouls, Humber had 4 fouls. And he was like losing his mind. And I said to him, like, we're not changing how we're officiating. You guys have to change the way you're playing because we're not changing the way we're officiating. Here's what we're seeing. You guys are way more aggressive. And the number 55 in the post, way too aggressive in the first half. Too much hand checking in the backcourt. This is what we're seeing. So always be able to justify the foul count. If there's a discrepancy, know why it's a discrepancy and be able to justify it if asked, even if it's just within your crew. But don't change the way you're officiating if you can agree, hey, that's bang on with what's happening on the floor. Like I don't agree with it I totally disagree that every quarter should be 5-5 or 4-4, every half should be 8-8 fouls. No, that's not the way the game is always played. I remember watching a game one time and the foul count on the board was 5-1. And this official went boom, 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 3 calls against the team that had 1 foul. And all 3 of them were marginal calls. This was a university game. And it turned out the scoreboard was incorrect. It wasn't 5-1 at all. The foul count was 3-2. And he overreacted to what he saw on the board because it didn't look good to have a 5-1 foul count. Ended up making a real mess of the situation. So know what the foul count is, be able to justify it. That's good game management for sure. Great question though. Yeah, look.
One of the favorite stories that you've said over the years is you've gone to an off-sub, I think it was a gold medal game, and it was a great game back and forth. And after the game, everyone came up to you and said, "Great job, Phil." And then you said, "Oh, I didn't do anything." So can you just talk about the importance of sometimes just recognizing, just staying out of the way?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think that's a great situation to think about, is that, they say about officials, you're doing a great job when no one notices you, right? Not too often do you say, well, that official was great because he had like 11 calls in that, you know, the second half or down the stretch. Chances are, look at Jason Goebel the other week, you know, where he stepped in and made that call in the Knicks game and just got, like, just absolutely ruined the game, right? That game that Clifton's talking about was OFSA final, Eastern and Pickering, which was just a tremendous game. Pickering won it at the buzzer with a 3 at the buzzer. And I think we had 11 foul calls in the whole game. Like it was just a really well played game. And I was with Chris Delaney, and we both said, like at halftime, hey, it's like almost like a no hitter. Like I think the fouls were like 3-2 in the first half. Like great, like let's just stay out of the way. The ball's going in, players are going up and down, temperature is fine. We don't need to overreact in that situation. And yeah, it ended up being a really well played game. Everybody was happy with the job we did, and we didn't wear out our whistles that night, that's for sure. So yeah, just sometimes recognizing, step back, don't need to get involved, let the players play, let the game go. Often your best games you officiate. Well guys, I think that's it, but thanks for having me back, and like I said, don't hesitate